We interrupt this program to bring you an important Wayfair message. Wayfair's got style tips for every home. This is Styles McKenzie helping you make those rooms sing. Today's style tip. When it comes to making a statement, treat bold patterns like neutrals. Go wild, like an untamed animal print area rug under a rustic farmhouse table from Wayfair.com. Arr, fierce. This has been your Wayfair style tip to keep those interiors superior.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
From a meeting at the office to a big first date, there's a lot of pressure to wear the right clothes for every event. But clothes don't make the man. So why stuff your closet with things that only work for some situations? With Mack Weldon, you can build a wardrobe that looks polished in any setting. Their clothing is understated and tells the world that you stay you wherever you go. They craft each piece by combining timeless style and modern performance materials. So you can stay looking good and feeling comfortable from morning to evening. No wardrobe changes required. Browse everything from summer-ready tech linen shorts and anti-odor polos to tailored sweats and crews for a night in. They can outfit you for anything, no matter what's on your agenda for the day. Go to MackWeldon.com and get 25% off your first order of $125 or more with promo code MACK25. That's MackWeldon.com. Promo code MAC25.
If you work as a manufacturing facilities engineer, installing a new piece of equipment can be as complex as the machinery itself. From prep work to alignment and testing, it's your team's job to put it all together. That's why it's good to have Grainger on your side. With industrial-grade products and next-day delivery, Grainger helps ensure you have everything you need close at hand through every step of the installation. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
If you love entertainment, current events, and Hollywood, don't miss Creator to Creators, hosted by the filmmaker Meosha, known for the Shudder hit documentary Horror Noir and the acclaimed film Anatomy of an Antihero, Redemption. This show features interviews with filmmakers and creatives from around the globe. Join the fun with guest celebrities and gain valuable insights. Subscribe now and follow Creator to Creators.
Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Creators to Creators today. Today we have a special guest,
Peter O. Estévez.
Welcome. I'm so honored to have you on the show.
Well, Meosha, thank you so much. I'm humbled and grateful for the opportunity to be with you and to be with your community.
Yeah, this show, I love Creators to Creators is not just about entertainment and film, but also the entrepreneur life and just people that are just going out and living their life and being bold and just going for it. And I mean, you do it. I mean, I looked at a lot of your stuff and your videos, and just things that you're doing for the community and around the world. It's just amazing. But I love going back to the beginning. I always say that the beginning kind of charts our trajectory of like kind of where we're going in life, our little small habits that we pick up along the way. Tell me a little bit about your childhood and kind of how did you make your way to where you are now?
Wow, that's probably one of my favorite topics. No, it really is. And I say that with a lot of humility because often people see us when we arrive, but they never take the time to understand how we got there, right?
Right.
And often I think to myself, and I tell my business partner, Mauricio Garcia, that we make life look easy, okay? We make life look easy, particularly today in social media, when you see somebody traveling around the world, traveling around the country,
Yeah.
jetting in and out, being in Miami one day, New York the other. And, even that takes a lot of energy, takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of work. But besides that is the effort that it took to even get there, to even arrive, to even be able to afford to do all of that. I'm one of 13 children. I migrated to the United States at the age of 10 years old with my mom, dad, 6 brothers, 6 sisters. There was 15 of us. We lived in a 2-bedroom, 1-bath frame home. I am an immigrant, first generation immigrant. My father had a 3rd grade education. My mother had a 6th grade education. They came to America in pursuit of the American dream. Unbeknownst to them, the American dream was unreachable for them. Okay. They had every odd stacked against them. from education, third grade education, sixth grade education, 13 children, didn't speak the language. It was going to be difficult. The good thing for that, and the one thing that I can say with a lot of pride is that I have been able to realize the American dream for my parents and for
Oh,
future generations to come. So with that said, it was a tough journey. It
I
was a
bet.
tough journey. One of 13, we migrated to San Antonio, Texas, which at the time was a very American town. And I say that because it was 9 military bases. Okay. People there were definitely patriotic and a foreign coming into their country. And we lived in a corner house, 13 children. We were not the typical stereotype American family,
Right.
we were not white picket fence. There was not, 2 cars and 2.5 children, a dog and a cat. No, there was 13 children.
Wow.
Okay. So we were definitely the odd family. It was very, very, very difficult. As a matter of fact, Meosha, there was a time in my life that I felt a lot of shame for who I was and where I came from.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, and hence why I changed my name, not legally, but from Pedro to Peter. Okay, and why I did a lot of things that I didn't unconsciously at the time, because I just wanted to fit in. I just wanted to be accepted. I just wanted to be part of, not apart from.
I
And
see.
and all that rejection, what they did for me, they made me a chameleon. They made me and they helped me become adaptable, be able to fit in spaces that perhaps I would have not been able to fit in easily. So when it's very interesting how those survival skills, how those shortcomings and handicaps, at some point they become your strengths.
Yes.
Certain things that catapult you to be able to survive. Okay. Now, at some point in your life, they also work against you. You have to reverse, and you have to be able to understand that you have outgrown people, places, and spaces, and it's time for you to move on and grow and think differently and create emotional intelligence and do certain things that a lot of people don't do. Okay. So yeah, I mean, it was a tough childhood, but that top child, seeing my father was a hardworking man, and he was incredibly resourceful. My mother had an uncanny faith. My mother would spend hours on her rocking chair praying back and forth, and I have to walk by and think to myself, as a cynical young boy, thinking, why the F does she pray so much for?
Right. Right.
Situation never changes. Today I realized that mother's prayers were being answered, just not on my timing.
Mm.
Mothers, I wanted it now. I wanted out of the sleeping bag into my own comfortable bed. I
Yeah.
wanted hand-me-down clothes into that cool kids at school clothes. And all I was getting was my older brother's hand-me-down pants or t-shirts or shirts or whatever. So what I have learned to realize is, as an adult, as an entrepreneur, as a father today, as a member of my community, as an entrepreneur, that hard work, resourceful, and a lot of faith can get you a long way.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Absolutely. That's amazing that, that you just continued. Did you know exactly that you were heading to, because for me, when I was, it's not that many in our family, there's four, and I'm the baby. And I was the one that was like, I want to go to Hollywood and become a filmmaker and do all these things, make movies. And, my parents were very supportive, and, they were like, yeah, do it. Sure. They didn't think that that was, but it was one summer I rented the Alfred Hitchcock series. And I think that's when the seed was sown, is like, that's what I want to do. I want to make, films. Like, was it like, did you know that you wanted to do entrepreneurship, or just stuff that it just kind of fell into it just from like things throughout your life?
Meosha, you got to remember something. I'm much older than you are, and I'm pre-internet. I'm pre-social media. I'm
Right.
technology.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah.
my world was very narrow, was very small. Okay, but I had big dreams. I had
Yeah.
very, very big dreams. I was only exposed to my immediate surroundings,
I
but I
see.
had to see beyond my immediate surroundings in my dreams, in my head, in my mind. Okay,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, I grew up in an environment where people can see in you what they cannot see in themselves. Okay.
Mm,
So there was
okay.
not a lot of hope. There was not a lot of, my mother, we were not the typical family where we talked about going to college. I remember vividly working at a grocery store, and I must have been 14 years old, sacking groceries, and mother telling me, I can remember this as if it was yesterday. Mother telling me, take care of your job, son. Okay. Maybe one day you can become the store manager. Okay.
Wow.
I also do remember thinking, heck, I don't want to be a store manager at that rinky little grocery store.
Right.
So I knew that my dreams were bigger than that. And I knew
Mm,
that I wanted to go somewhere. I just didn't know where or how. Right.
yeah.
But my mind started expanding. I think entrepreneurship is a trait, is a gift that every people that comes from very humble beginnings has. It's
Mm,
something that we have innately because it's also a survival skill. Gary Vee has made it cool. He calls it side hustle. He
yeah.
calls it entrepreneurship. But the reality is that in many Black and brown communities, it's survival.
Yeah.
Okay, is a part-time job, or the 2-3 part-time jobs, is side hustle at the flea market, is selling whatever in order just to make ends meet. So I saw those skills in my father. I saw my father hustle his way through life, had his full-time job working as much as he could as a blue-collar worker, but I also saw him, having a booth to the flea market, selling, used clothes or whatever it was, just to make ends meet. So that taught me that I did see my father try very hard. I saw my mother's faith, and somehow they always made it. Somehow they always made it. Somehow they always met that month. Somehow they got us through school.
Wow.
Somehow I got through high school. Somehow, I was able to see beyond that. And I think my parents' spirit, in spite of their circumstances, they never gave up on themselves and they never gave up on their children. They
Mm,
might have not seen the potential, or might have not even spoken about the potential.
right.
Maybe the way mother spoke about our potential was to God in her prayers, but she never spoke it out to us. So having said all of that, that drove me, that inspired me, that made me wanted to do more, be more, become more. And at some point I found my pathway. And first I tried the restaurant business, and it worked out well until it didn't. And then I
Yeah.
get a real estate business, and that was my niche.
Yeah.
That was my breakthrough. That was my opportunity. I found something I could do well, I was good at. I knew there was a market. I knew it was. I very early on in life, I was associated causes. The things I did to social causes. I wanted to make a difference. I
Mm,
wanted to change people's life. So I got very focused in providing affordable housing for underprivileged families,
love that.
primarily Black and brown communities. And I realized that there's a quote that says, it's Peter Diamandis often says this, and he says that if you want to get rich, okay, find a big problem and find a solution for it. Okay.
Mm,
And I
mhm.
realized at some point that I had found a big problem, and it was the lack of affordability in the housing space for Black and brown communities. I realized that I could understand the finances system. I could understand the process. I became a builder, I became a developer, and at some point in my life, I became the largest independently owned broker, developer, and home builder in South Texas.
Wow.
The rest is history. The rest
That's
is history.
beautiful.
So that was my breakthrough. But Danny, who's my business partner, and he's kind of my sidekick. He's my Ryan die.
Yeah.
One day, if because I eventually had an exit in that particular business. I was never planning an exit. I was never planning. I never thought it was going to be a business. To me, it was just survival. I
Mm,
was doing something to get out of poverty. Okay.
yeah.
There
Yeah.
was no plan. There was no structure. And hence where I'm, and to a certain degree, I got lucky. I was able to do certain things in spite of.
Yeah.
Okay. But that catapulted me to a different level. Okay. And I learned from that experience in my life that every phase of your life requires a different you. Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. Can you say that one more time? Every
Every phase of your life requires a different you. So what got me to that point into the real estate business, into being able to have a successful exit, and to be able to have a successful business, was not going to get me to where I'm at today. I needed to do something different about who I was. I needed to acquire a different set of skills, a different set of mindset, a different set of emotional intelligence, a different set of understanding, a different set of knowledge. And that kept me taking me to the next level of evolution.
I love that. Wow. If okay, you ever thought like if you didn't take this path, what path you would have? Like you ever
I
thought like if
I,
you was an entrepreneur?
I didn't only think about it, I actually experienced it, because I ended up in the real estate business by mere coincidence. My background was in the restaurant business. I
Uh,
had two successful successful restaurants, and at some point I sold them, and to move back to my home country with a girl that I had met and I was madly in love with. And
yeah.
then I realized that that was not going to work out, so I came back. I came back to Texas, and
Yeah.
I had already spent the money I had made in the restaurant business, so I started looking for a job. And I'm talking back when you used to buy a newspaper, look through the want ads, and look for a job in the want ads.
Yes.
Okay, and there was an opportunity in the restaurant business as a district manager for a large chain of restaurants in South Texas, and I remember applying for it. And I applied for the job. I went and met with the district manager at the time. He interviewed me and he hired me on the spot.
Wow.
He hired me on the spot. As a matter of fact, that was a defining moment in my life, because I remember it was a Mexican restaurant, and the place was packed during lunchtime when he interviewed me. And then he made the mistake of inviting me to walk through the kitchen. And I said a mistake. And the reason I said that he made the mistake is because I remember vividly, I was wearing a suit, I was wearing a nice pair of shoes, and I'm walking through the kitchen, and I hear people hollering back and forth. Number one, the dishes are full, get some dishes, the chaos that goes on in the kitchen. Okay.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing all of this in Spanish, and I remember my shoes getting stuck on the grease, when you're walking through the kitchen. And
Uh-huh.
I walked, and he's walking me through the kitchen. Here I am being offered a job, right? And all I'm thinking, I hearing the Spanish voices back and forth. I'm seeing me, or what could be me, or what could become me, washing dishes, cooking food, running like
Wow.
crazy in the kitchen. And I thought to myself, this is everything I'm running away from. Now, don't get me wrong,
Mm.
I'm not minimizing any of that, or any of that work, or any of the people that were there. It was just what I was running away from. I wanted more for myself.
I love that. I
Uh,
love
I wanted more for myself, and that was an awakening moment for me. So I left I left the place, was supposed to come back that afternoon to pick up my airline ticket to fly to Fort Worth to start my training the following day. And I went back just to tell the gentleman that I was not going to take the job.
right. You're like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well,
I love that.
in the meantime, after I left that restaurant, I smell like grease. I smell like kitchen. My shoes were still, clicking on the concrete when I walked to my car. I went and picked up another newspaper, and I saw an advertisement, a one ad talking about enter the real estate business. Unbeknownst to me, we were in one of the worst real estate crisis, worse
Wow.
than 2008. But believe it or not, I called that telephone number. I made an appointment with the broker, Francis P. Moran. I went and met him at that right there and then. We connected. He wanted me to start getting my real estate license, and that was the pivotal moment. So
Wow.
yes, just imagine I was one step away, one job away from my life being completely different.
That's
Okay,
amazing.
one job away from being completely different. And I always remember, we have a tendency to recreating the lives that we know, right? The relationships. There's often said that we date our mothers or our fathers. We become what we know. And
Yeah.
I remember vividly the moment that I would see in a relationship, and whether it was a girlfriend or whatever it was, that I would see a pattern that I was running away from. I would
Mm.
end that relationship. Okay. I was hyper aware. I had a certain amount of hyper awareness. I didn't know what I wanted, but I did know what I did not want.
Right.
Okay. And along the way, I was figuring out what I wanted.
Okay.
And I realized that what I wanted was not where I was at. Okay. And although by the time I was 24 years old, I had achieved massive amount of success, but at the same time, I was numbing myself because I didn't feel enough. I felt
Mm.
fear, insecurity. I'm not enough. I felt the imposter syndrome. So I try to mask that with alcohol, with women, with a pair of shoes, with a new tie, with a new suit, with a new car, with the new girlfriend, with the new wife, whatever it was, something that would change the way that I felt. And
Isn't that interesting? You would think that, and I think that's a lot of people think that if they reach a certain amount of success, that they will be happy. Like that's it. I don't have to do any more self-work or any self-realization, that kind of thing. It's like, yeah, and I've worked with a lot of famous people, but and I can tell, like, and a lot of people are not as happy as they seem to be on the walk in the red carpets. It's like, wow, it's really that inside work.
absolutely, you can reach a certain amount of success and be very happy if
Sure.
you have addressed the issues that you've been carrying on.
Yeah.
Okay. I had been carrying on a toxic waste dump on my back for many generations.
Yeah.
I was not only carrying my shame and my guilt and my fear and my insecurities, but I was carrying my parents and my grandparents and my great grandparents and
Yeah.
multiple generations. And it was not until I addressed them that I was able to walk away from them. Okay. But that takes a lot of work. So, a lot of people say success does not bring you money. No, it does not. No, it does not. If you have not addressed your personal issues, okay.
Mm,
But
mhm.
success does not bring you happiness. I said success does not bring you money. Success does not bring you happiness. Success brings you a lot of happiness. Money brings you a lot of happiness if you have addressed the issues. If you are in a consistent, persistent pursuit of being the best version of yourself.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
if you get stuck in the person that you started with, no, you're not going to be happy. It doesn't matter how much money, how much of sex, who you marry, who you date, or what you do. End of story.
That's end of story. I love that. Really quick. I know that you wrote a book, and I was just curious. I wrote a children's book for the first time last year, and that was kind of daunting. But I really always wanted to write something, but I just didn't know what. Um, what what was your motivation and to sharing your experience and insights with others? Like when you wrote the book.
Yeah, my book is called From Lies to Riches.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? 13 Steps to a Healthy Life. I've been sober for 25 years now. Okay.
Wow. All right.
And as I mentioned to you, I used to mask a lot of my pain, a lot of my fear, a lot of my insecurities, a lot of the I'm not enough, a lot of the imposter syndrome in alcohol and women and sex and cars and toys and ties and shoes, whatever, right?
Mhm.
And I got sober through this 12-step program, right?
Great.
And the 12-step program really changed my life to a certain point. Okay. I always continue is that life does not have a the end.
Right.
Okay. We may end, but life does not have a the end. Life
Right.
never ends. Life continues with or without us.
Right.
Right. And I think a lot of times there are certain circumstances that impacts us and then we stop growing. Right. So I get sober through the 12 step. But what I realized once I got sober, that I was still feeling the same way I used to feel. Okay. The only difference was that I was not drinking. So what I come to the conclusion was that sobriety is only stopping the drinking or the using or the drugging or whatever it is, right? But recovery is a transformation of the mind, body,
Mm.
and spirit. Okay.
Mhm.
It's a full transformation. And that takes place. That takes more than an AA meeting. That takes more than 12 steps. That takes endless number of steps because time, life goes on with or without you. So you
Mhm.
cannot stop growing. And what I have realized was that I thought I have found the solution of the 12-step program. And what I did, I found myself sober and miserable. And there was many a times that I thought to myself, if I'm going to be miserable sober, I'd rather get
Yeah.
drunk
Yeah.
and have a good time.
Right.
Because
Right. Right.
let me tell you, I had a great time when I was drinking.
Yeah.
People
Mhm.
around me didn't, but I did. Okay.
Mhm.
But what I realized was that when I drank, I sabotaged myself. I did. It was awakening some of the unsettled, some of the unsettled feelings and emotions that I had not resolved. Okay,
Mm.
so I thought there has to be a better life to this. There has to be more to it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then what I realized is, how do you transform yourself? How do you have that transformation of the mind, soul, body, and spirit? Okay. I truly believe that as humans, all of us, okay, or 99% of us live in a state of survival.
Yeah.
Okay? We're just surviving. I mean, I can be jogging or walking down the street and I see people literally talking to themselves without talking to themselves. They're preoccupied with the mortgage, with the car payment, with the girlfriend, with the mother, whatever it is that's going on in their lives. They
Yeah.
don't have a sense of clarity. Okay. And what I realize is that you cannot achieve external success when you're fighting an internal battle.
Mm.
To
Yeah.
achieve external success, you have to exit that state of survival. You have to become present and available. You have to be here in the now, and you have to be able to see your life with clarity and possibilities.
Right. Right.
And that to do that, you're actually operating from what I call a state of flow.
I
When
like
you
that.
operate from a state of flow, I'm
Mhm.
having this great conversation with you. Nothing else matters. It doesn't matter what's going on out there. I'm here. I'm present and available. I'm here in the now. I'm
Right.
operating from a state of flow. I can think clearly. I can see my life for what it is and for what it's going to become
Right. Right.
because I have exited that state of survival. But in order for me to do that, I have to tend to my 5 pillars. What are my 5 pillars? The physical, the mental, the emotional, the spiritual, and the financial. And when
Mhm.
I operate those, when I take care of those, when I tend to those on a daily basis, I fly like a jet.
Yes. Yes.
I operate
Absolutely.
like a jet. I don't operate like a car that has a flat tire.
Right.
Able to do whatever I need to do, whether it's
Yeah.
mentally, emotionally, spiritual, financially. Okay. Because
Mhm.
I have exited that state of survival. Now, don't get me wrong. That does not mean that I don't have problems or issues. That means I can see them with clarity and possibility. Okay.
Yes.
That
I
means
love
that
what you said, flow. I feel that that is a real thing. Like I used to operate in that state, when I first started in the industry, very green and not sure about things. But as I remember, I'm a PK kid, so preacher's kid. So I come from, very much church background. And it is that, like, when I started to stop holding the problems and give the problems to God and let God lead me, that flow is it's so real. Like it's
yeah,
like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Like,
absolutely. I told Danny the other day, a lot of times you start working in your business, not on your business. Okay. And when you start working in your business, you exit that state of survival and you're all overwhelmed by issues, right?
yeah.
So, and the reason I was working in the business, not on the business, was because I neglected some of my 5 pillars for a couple of days. And
Mm,
it is so funny how quickly you can go back to your default mode.
right.
Okay. So to go back to my book, what I did, I took the 12 steps, what I learned from each one of the steps, how each one of the steps impacted my life. And then I added the 13th step. And the 13th step is you cannot stop growing. You have to exit that state of survival. You have to become present and available. You have to be here in the now. You have to pray. You have to meditate. You have to journal. You have to exercise. You have to run. Okay. You have to take time for yourself. You
Yeah.
have to write a gratitude list. It doesn't matter if you feel like it or not. It's
Yeah.
part of tending to those 5 pillars.
Yeah.
And when you tend to those 5 pillars, when you do certain activities on a daily basis, you operate from your hormones, from dopamine, serotonin, and all those good feeling hormones that we have innately inside of us. But many a times we numb with alcohol, with women, with caffeine, with sex, with whatever you want to.
Very
Okay.
true.
But if you want to feel good, do good and take
Yeah.
care of those hormones, and you immediately feel good.
I love that. Oh, this is so
Eh,
I feel like you're taking me to church. Like I feel like I'm getting this is so good. This is great. Really quick question. Okay. The three levels of influence: money, power, and respect. And if
mhm.
you could choose only one of those things, which one would you choose and why?
Respect.
Okay. I like that.
Respect gives you money, and respect gives you power. It's just that simple.
Love
You know,
that.
I would not be the man that I am today if I have not earned the respect of many.
Mm.
Okay. And I can tell you, last year we traveled, Mauricio Garcia and I, my business partner, to 86 different cities across across America. And there's not a city where I cannot call and put together a dinner with 15, 20 people in the United
Mm.
States.
Love
Okay. Because I earned that through respect, not by influence, not by power, but by keeping my word and by being available for others.
I love that. That's beautiful. Oh, what advice would you give for aspiring entrepreneurs out there?
The best advice I can give you is to operate with clarity and possibilities. And the only way that you can do that is by tending to your 5 pillars. Okay.
Mm.
If you are able to exit that state of survival, okay, we are looking for all of the answers in Gary B and Grant Cardone and Bill Winston. We have all the answers inside of us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We need to look inside of us in order to find the answers to what we want and what we want to do. Now, don't get me wrong. It is great to have great mentors like Bill Winston and Grant Cardone and Gary B and Tim Story and many of the great motivational and influential speakers that are today, I feel honored and privileged to say, call them my friends. But at the same time, you cannot have what they have. You have to have what you are. Okay.
Mm. Mhm.
So if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, exit the state of survival, become present and available here and the now. Take care of yourself so you can have possibilities and clarity. And then you're going to see the world for what it is and not for what you want it to be. But when you see the world for what it is, you can create what you want it to be.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Ah, I love that. I love that. I could talk to you all day. Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me everywhere on social media. I'm at Peter O. Estévez on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on Pinterest, on TikTok. I'm on every platform that you can think of. So Peter O. Estévez. My website is peteroestevez.com. Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank
Thank you for having me on your show, and thank you for sharing your the message and impacting people the way that you're doing it. And I love your spank and spunk
Oh,
and smile and the attitude that you have.
thank you. Thank you so much. That's an honor coming from you. Thank you so very much. And come back anytime, anytime. That'll be fun.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
All right. Thank you. And thank you all for listening. And always remember to live, love, laugh. We'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.